Ray, are we ready? Okay. Chair, I'm sorry, today is July 28, 2021, work session 4:30. Can you please bow our heads for a moment of silent prayer? Amen. The chair would like to amend this agenda for this evening to add for item number 5 as a search for superintendent, for number 6, establishing protocol for information being sent to the board, and then item number 7, consideration of executive session. I say that again, the chair will entertain a motion to amend the agenda to add for item number 5, to start a search for superintendent, number 6, establishing protocol for information being sent to the board, and number 7, consideration of executive session.
Question, Madam President.
Yes, sir.
For Attorney Fuller, for what we just added for 5, is that something that we can discuss in executive session, or should we discuss that publicly?
If it's general information regarding a superintendent search, that can be discussed in open.
Okay.
I would mention that this is a work session. No action needs to be taken. Madam President, you can just announce the additions and we can move on. I don't think it requires a motion to amend it.
I've already sought for the recommendation. And Dr. Bailey, for the record, we have to do this in public. This cannot be done in executive session.
My problem, I just want to ask the attorney if here for record.
Chair will entertain a motion.
No motion. This work session.
Chair will entertain a motion. It's been motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed, Madam President, you taking a motion in the work
Ayes
session?
have it, motion is carried. Let the record show that Dr. Bailey opposed.
Madam President, can I speak?
You should, you can.
Again, this is a work session.
So Dr. Bailey, before I got here, don't you think I would have already made sure that what I'm doing is correct?
I'm not arguing with that, Madam President, but you not sharing that information with the board is problematic.
But you,
I just asked the attorney.
go ahead,
I do know that, we needed to make some, changes to the agenda. And, when you make or amend agendas, those motions, we do understand that we will not be taking any action today. But let's just move collegially forward with our meeting. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. First on the agenda is principal monthly meetings. Sorry. Chair will entertain a motion to accept or to approve the amended agenda.
So moved.
It's been motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Ayes have it, motion is carried. Let the record show that Dr. Roshan Bailey opposes. First of all, we have Mr. Clinton Gatewood in athletics. Board members, do you have any questions?
Madam President, I do have a question for athletics.
Let me make sure. I think those are just reports. Yes, those are reports. I'm sorry. First we have Ayatoya Roy from Amanda Elton High School. Any questions, board members? questions for Ms. Rowe, we have Mr. Glenn Stevens, Bankston Elementary. Claudine Brown Elementary, Ms. Tara Harris. Davis Elementary, Ms. Bush. East, Mr. Lucas. Greenwood High School, Mr. Baron Clark. Greenwood Middle School, Mr. Kevin Mays. Leflore County Elementary School, Ms. Smith. Leflore County High School, Mr. Raymond Russell. Red Deer Elementary School, Mrs. Valerie Williams. Red Deer Primary School, Ms. Dawn West. No questions, board members? No questions, principals, thank you for coming. Dr. Brown, could you please make sure from today forward that the principals put their names on their reports, so it won't be so hard to remember what school is what. Make sure the school name and their name is on the report. Thank you, principals. Dr. Brown.
Good evening. First, we have on the work session agenda, principal's monthly report. Now we will review the regular agenda. The agenda for regular board meeting of Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021. As we go through, number 1, call to order. 2, approval of the agenda. 3, superintendent's report. 3.1.
Sorry, Dr. Brown, we didn't finish on the work session. Like for number 3.
Right, we go through the regular agenda is number 2.
Okay.
3.1, the chief's monthly report. And then 3.2, we'll have our school at risk report for East Elementary by Dr. Pulley. Additional targeted support and interventions report for Leflore Elementary by Dr. Pulley. Moving into the regular agenda, first we'll have a 16-section bid opening by Mr. Ainsworth. Next, we have approval of requests for transfers of employees' children. That's page 7. Seven and 8 in the packet. Next, on page 9, we have approval of student release from the GLCSD. And we have letters attached, pages 10 through 11, 10 through 12. Next, you'll have the Next, you'll have the approval of the revised organizational chart. It will be revised to reflect the, changes for the chief of finance and the athletic director and chief of compliance. 4.5, you have approval of reverse auction bids, which begins on page 13, Mr. Johnson.
You have a list of bids that were sent out for approval for reverse auction. The first bid is for classroom furnishings, that's student and teacher desks. These will be covered with ESTA 3 funding pending the approval of the application. You can see the bid costs, and then following pages you have the actual bid results. That is actually for the furnishing, starts on page 20. I see 20 and 44. And on page 26 and 27 and 50 and 51, you have what those student and teacher desks would look like. And then next bidding you have is the janitorial supplies. Those lists are on page 14, 15, 16. And you have the items that are listed in green. Those were the lowest bid for that particular company. And so we would go with the lowest bid from both companies, whichever price was the lowest for that particular product. And the last bid is the fuel tanks.
Question, Madam President. Dr. Brown and Mr. Johnson, in regards to the desks and the chairs, what's the ideal timeline of, the entire process occurring and the district receiving those products and having them within the classroom?
The ESTA 3 application was just released on yesterday, so guidance is out. The application will be due August the 31st. And so I'm thinking approval will happen at some point in September. Based on what the vendor said, it's about a 3 to 4 month time period before they would be released once the order is actually placed. So we're looking possibly late December, early January, depending on how the Christmas holiday falls.
Thank you.
Dr. Brown, I would like to go back to 4.4. I guess I don't have a copy of the organization chart. Yeah, I have an extra.
Yeah, we can get a copy. We just have revised the other one to reflect the changes for, business manager.
Well, I would like to see it.
Dr. can you advise what page the org chart is on?
If the chart itself is not in, we want to revise it and place it in there before doing.
Dr. Brown, everybody has a copy. Now, can you tell us what's gonna be changed?
The changes reflect the chief of finance to report to the assistant superintendent, down at the bottom on your right, and up top, the chief of athletics and the chief of extracurricular and compliance to report to the superintendent.
So those are the only changes.
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions, board members?
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Based on the initial document that we have, regarding, athletics, I believe, regarding that, and that was the very first page, it was noted that, Mr. Johnson was contacted. Is there a reason why you were not contacted as you are the direct report?
Right, so Mr. Johnson does deal with COVID and will transition to Dr. Harvey as well.
Okay, no questions, Dr. Brown?
Page 32, approval of the Greenwood Leflore Consolidated School District's Health Services Policies and Procedures Manual, Mr. Johnson.
What you have is an updated copy of the policies and procedure manual for the Health Services Department. It's just the same one that was approved last year with a couple of updates.
So, Mr. Johnson, when I was reading through these procedures, how does the, nursing department plan to disseminate and share this information with the community, parents, students, and teachers?
Well, last year they did a series of videos. We do have those posted to our Facebook page as well as our website. And the documents are also posted online. And we do have some more information that we'll be doing as far as COVID testing. So they will be doing some videos kind of highlighting exactly how that process and procedures will look for this school year. And each one of them does it for their particular schools as well. And whenever they have a parent night, they also present that information there.
Thank you.
Dr. Brown?
Page 121, approval of the 2021-2022 Transportation Warehouse Services Policies and Procedures Manual, Mr. Johnson.
We have is an updated copy of the policies and procedures manual for the Transportation and Warehouse Department that highlights some of the things that was put in place last year as well as reflect some of the changes of staff.
Question, Madam President.
Go ahead, Dr. Brown.
Mr. Johnson, so, and I haven't had a chance to read this in depth, will we be providing monitors, or are we still expecting, the bus drivers to kind of do everything in regards
Yes.
to the onboard?
And you will see in personnel, we have added some additional monitors, but each bus will have a monitor as we're able to fill those spots. We are advertising, most of them was pre-approved with the bus driver that list of monitors, and we trying to get additional ones to cover those buses that are not covered.
Do you also share with the board how many bus drivers that we need?
We previously needed 8 bus drivers. Currently, we would have 5 to approve on this coming board. And so we're looking for 3 additional, but we're always looking for additional drivers because we need substitute drivers as well. 3 will help us to be able to do our routes. Of course, we can double up on routes, but we would prefer to have 1 driver per route at this time. And we are seeking hopefully at least 6 additional. That way we would have enough substitute in the event that we do have drivers that may take ill or may not be able to perform that particular day.
Mr. Johnson, how do you all propose to handle, transportation for athletics?
one of the proposals that we had last year was that to have our coaching staff, all licensed bus drivers, that would kind of eliminate some of the issues that occur. But because of COVID and because of trying to get those coaches to particular bus training, because you have to actually go through a class to get those CDLs. Right now, we're just using our current drivers that possibly will have short routes that are able to do their routes and then proceed with those activity trips. And as we did in the past, we would double up on particular routes. In the event that we had to pull a driver to go to an early game, we would just have a person to double up on that particular route. But that's why I say we are still in need of substitute drivers, because in that event, they could serve as our activity drivers.
So is it going to be mandatory for coaches to become bus drivers?
Well, that was a policy that we were looking to ask for the board to approve. That didn't happen on last year. But that's something that would help alleviate the problem of activity trips for bus drivers. In a lot of districts, they do require their coaches to have their bus license.
Madam President, ma'am, when we have these same, type monitors when our athletes have to travel in regard to taking temperature checks?
That would be the coach's duty, the assistant coaches and coaches' duty to make sure those things are monitored and taking place.
Page 142, approval of the 2021-2022 Food and Nutrition Services Policy Procedure Manual. Mr. Johnson.
What you have is the updated copy of the policies and procedures manual for food services for the upcoming school year.
Any questions, board members?
I do have a question. Mr. Johnson, so is it saying that our food service employees they have to abide by two handbooks? One for district and one for food and nutrition services?
Yes,
So they have to abide by two sets of policies?
yes, because they have some specific things that apply directly to them as it relates to food service.
Okay.
Ms. Brown?
Page 155, approval of cash bank request school cafeterias. Mr. Johnson.
The food service department is requesting for the funds to be made available to start off with the processing of meals for the upcoming school year, to have change on hand for those students that will be buying and paying for their lunch. And that's just to make sure that the cash is there for the managers to be able to give change to students and staff.
Okay. Approval of professional services for ESSA construction project management. Mr. Johnson, page 157.
What you have is a proposal from Bailey Management for project management of the ESSA projects that have been approved through our ESSA 2 funding and will be continued with our ESSA 3 funding. Those include our HVAC and window projects, our renovations of bathrooms and locker rooms, as well as the floor removal of carpet and replacement to tile.
I see the schedule says 36 months. So how soon would they start?
Oh, I met recently with all three architect groups. They're in the process of doing the facilities assessment, where they have their engineers out to access exactly what needs to be done so they can write the scope of work. Once the scope of work is written, then they will advertise for bidding. And I'll provide the board with updates as it relates to once those bids have taken place and the actual start date after the bidding process. But we are looking at possibly, from the conversation I had with them, probably a month off before we actually have the scope of work finished on our HVAC system and on our bathroom renovations.
You have a question, board member?
I have a question, so just a point of clarity, Mr. Johnson. This organization is going to be managing all three?
Yes, they're gonna be managing, making sure that the projects are occurring in a timely manner, making sure that the purchasing is meeting state standards as well as federal standards as it relates to ESSA and as it relates to state bid, and just making sure that someone is keeping an eye on making sure the progress is taking place as it should.
So each company doesn't manage themselves?
No, they are architect firms. What they do, they design the projects and they bid it out to construction companies.
Thank you.
Dr. Brown?
Page 161, approval of waterproofing basement of central office building, Mr. Johnson.
You have an additional attachment. It would be the one that shows B and R at the top. That was the bid that was done. We only had one bidder to bid on the waterproofing of the basement. And that was the amount, and just a preference in talking to the architect on yesterday, that only covers the waterproofing of the exterior building, the basement, and a drainage system. That does not include any interior work or renovations or removal of any hazardous materials from the inside.
Mr. Johnson, looking at this amount of money, what are the future plans for that building?
At this point, I don't see any, but that's at the discretion of the board and the superintendent.
What's the name, President?
Go ahead, Dr. Brady.
Dr. Brown and Mr. Johnson, if we were to put this amount of money into that facility, would we be fiscally responsible, managing taxpayer money, or put this money we use in the classroom?
I think the money can be used in a better situation, and I just want to preference, even with this amount, this is just a waterproofing. This does not get you physically back in the building, because the other things that need to be done on the inside will possibly be, if not close to this amount, maybe a little more. So you will be looking at putting about $1 million into that building to get it to where it needs to be. And that's not inclusive of the roof repairs that need to be done on that building as well.
Madam President,
Go ahead.
was not there a grant provided to the district to assist with the renovation efforts?
Yes, I spoke to the architect. They offer a grant. The grant is only up to $250,000, but it does not cover maintenance type things. It will cover possibly if any work needed to be done on the inside, but they only award max $250. From my understanding, they have never to this point awarded the max, and plus it's a 20% match, so it will be a 20% match or whatever.
And those grants have been awarded by the time we made our inquiries?
Well, the process starts in October. The next grant period starts October. They award by December.
Okay, as that date nears, can we get a status on whether or not, I know it's not the amount that we see here, but I do think every little bit helps. And with that building being a historic to me, structure. I would like to see us, keep that building on our roster, so that, you know, even if we have to, can you apply every year for those grants, Mr. Johnson?
You can apply every year for projects, and just speaking with Beard and Riser, they have worked extensively doing some of those projects, and you know, it has to be, it's only a certain number approved throughout the state every year, and so it usually tries to rotate throughout the state because it's a limited number. So it's no guarantee that you will be awarded year after year.
Mr. Johnson, are you referring to those historical properties, the grant for the historical properties?
Yes.
Okay.
And like I said, it wouldn't cover basic maintenance, which this waterproofing is considered.
Okay.
So this amount we would have to spend if you want to move forward, then possibly looking at the grant for the interior.
I would like to see us, maybe at least try to get some money that, you know, so that we could get that structure, renovated and up to par, so that we can go ahead, well, whenever the time comes. we could,
And one thing I do want to say, this would come out of district funds, which I know Ms. Washington is not here to address that, but we do have roofing needs that we do have to do some replacement on this year that would also, for our schools, that would also could utilize about this cost. I know it's going to be costly. I know the CTC is a #1 priority for the roof being replaced. Thread Gill Primary, and we have our auditorium, cafeteria, and library at Bankston Wing, that I know those things need to be addressed this year. And I just wanted to make sure I made the board aware of that.
I'm sorry for my lack of knowledge on the central office building. What is the condition of that basement?
The basement has flooded several times, like over the past few years. It had become, we had to do a quality inspection, which mold was found in the basement, so that was one reason why we had to move out of the building. And so in order to move back in, it would have to be waterproof, and then the whole bottom has to be pretty much demolished and redone to remove the molding and those things that's down there now.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
thank you.
That's right. Page 162, the 2020-2021 Consolidated Federal Programs Application Submission Approval, Dr. Kelly.
Below you will see the allocations for the budget for the 21-22 school year for the Consolidated Federal Programs applications. As you see here, it outlines the details of what each particular fund will be used for, or the monies in those funds will be used for. The deadline for submission actually is September 8th, but we want to make sure that we are submitting applications on time. And before submission, because this is a summary of the money that are allocated, before submission, we do have to have signatures, and we will definitely, before it is submitted, Ms. Miller, we're going to set up a meeting, and we'll call you just to, if it's okay to just review that final one. It's on page 163.
Any questions or amendments? Brown.
Page 154, approval of the 2021-2022 District's Professional Learning Plan, Dr. Kelly.
Attached, you will see a copy of this year's professional learning plan, and it is the same as last year. We did put it in a different format. We have additional members of our team this year, and so we were definitely inclusive of them. What's different here in this particular plan is that we have outlined some initial expected outcomes in our as it relates to goal setting, because one of our expectations that we do have for our that's on 169, just as an example. That is one of our expectations for everyone involved in the teaching and learning process, is that we set goals at the beginning, and everyone is a part of that, and we continue the work to reach those particular goals. And this is a way to help measure the effectiveness of those particular strategies that we're using.
Page 190, Delta Health Alliance's memorandum of understanding, Dr. Coon.
Attached, it is a memorandum of understanding, and I know we have had several of these, but the difference with this one is we're working with them as we provide the services for those students who will be working through the Delta Health Alliance, and we have to service those students. And these are students in pre-K.
Page 208, professional development for Leflore Elementary School, Ms. Coleman.
Leflore Elementary is deemed an additional targeted supported intervention school. Federal funds were awarded, and professional services have been secured to provide them with academic support at the beginning of school year through the spring of 2022. Any questions, board members? This professional development follows the advice that was provided to Leflore Elementary from their MDE coach, and it's also in their school-wide plan. Any questions, board members? No questions, Dr. Brown.
Page 239, approval of the 2021-2022 fixed assets policy and procedures manual, Ms. Cole.
The 2021-2022 Fixed Asset Policy and Procedures Manual adheres to the codes set forth by the state of Mississippi. The policies are aligned to the improved processes and procedures relating to the accountability of the district's fixed assets. The highlighted areas note the changes to the current manual.
Question, Madam President.
Go ahead, Dr. Brown.
Dr. Brown, this past academic year, Ms. Coleman was responsible for fixed assets, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, just clarification. Thank you.
Dr. Brown.
Page 263, approval of the submission of Mississippi State Department of Health Adopted School Provider Partnerships for COVID-19 vaccinations in schools application. Mr. Johnson. page 263.
I received a phone call from the Greenwood Leflore Hospital inquiring if the district would be willing to participate in the Adopt a School program for vaccinations, where they would partner with the local school to disseminate vaccinations to those students and staff that would desire it. And you have attached information that's provided by the Mississippi Department of Health on how that program would work in our schools.
Any questions, board member? Dr. Brown?
Page 287, approval of inventory removal, Ms. Cole.
The attached list includes student Chromebooks that were submitted for repair, but they were not returned to the district. The Chromebooks were deemed unrepairable. As a result, the claim center issued settlement amounts to the district. Mr. Storms, our Chief of Technology, has verified the claim numbers, serial numbers, location, asset tags, and settlement amounts. You will see in your packet an attachment supporting that statement and an email from Mr. Storms.
All of the Chromebooks listed here, they did have insurance, correct?
Yes,
They were
ma'am.
insured, okay,
Yes, ma'am. That was how we received the settlement amount.
okay.
Dr. Brown?
Next, you have page 291, claims docket and financial information, Ms. Thomas.
Try to answer the questions that you all have as far as the documentation.
Board members, do you have any questions?
And one other thing I wanted to let you all know, we are working to get the bank reconciliation.
Please speak in the mic.
We have started working to get the bank reconciliations caught up. We are currently on the month of June, and so far I've done 3, and the 3 of June, we've done all of May. And the accountant that we have right now, she's gonna start helping tomorrow, so hopefully we'll have all those done by the end of the week.
If you don't mind, could you introduce yourself to us, please?
Yes, ma'am. Please say no. I'm gonna tell you why I'm saying no. I did a chemical peel this weekend and my skin is peeling. So, that's why I was saying no. Ma'am.
Leave it out.
But my name is LaKenya Thomas. I just started after, I think it was Thursday, after your board meeting as your assistant CFO. And I've just been working with the team, trying to get everything in order, get everything situated. We've been working, trying to get all the new employees in, the salaries correct, to get payroll out on time, and amending budgets, just a little everything, trying to get everything in place and trying to get some stuff in order so we can just move forward and have a good school year.
Thank you.
And welcome to the district.
Thank you.
Dr. Brown?
Page 326, you have the 2021-2022 revised classified salary scale, Mr. Johnson.
We only have one change, and it was actually 2 changes. The technology department was left off of the scale. I'm not sure if y'all have it updated. Copy with the technology department, and the senior accountant position was
And once again, Mr. Johnson, could you please share with the board what it is that, you have it?
If, pay, the payroll clerk and the senior accountant position,
If you can speak in the mic.
the senior accountant position and the payroll position. The payroll clerk stayed the same, the senior accountant went up maybe by 30 cents, and so that would be trickled down throughout the, went up that amount for each spot. And that was due to, I think you will receive a proposed transfers, and that was to address that transfer.
Madam President, I make a statement?
Go ahead.
I would certainly like to commend the board, as well as the administration, for their efforts, as it pertains to this scale. However, I'm still of the opinion that for some of our positions, we can do better, with what we're paying, our employees.
Dr. Ray, just to piggyback, we still have to, that is correct. The board has worked diligently with that, business office, but we still have to maintain integrity as it relates to us following state statutes as well.
Dr. Brown.
Page 335, approval of a job description, Mr. Johnson.
Based on the changes that was given by Ms. Washington in the business office, this was a position that did not exist, so a job description is required for this position. The position is on the pay scale, but a job description was not available.
So you saying this is the first time we've got a job description for this position?
Yes, the position did not exist prior to. No one was in this position.
So this position was just made up?
Well, this is one that Ms. Washington referred. This is her job description. And she will be here Tuesday, so she'll be able to answer any other questions that you may have.
Dr. Brown.
Next, you'll have page 338, the consent agenda, which will include the minutes of the regular board meeting of Tuesday, July 6, 2021, the minutes of the special call board meeting of Thursday, July 8 of 2021. Also included on the regular agenda, there's a consideration for executive session, and then personnel recommendations. After personnel recommendations, adjournment, and that concludes the review of the regular board meeting agenda.
Madam President,
Go ahead.
if the time is appropriate, I have a question about personnel.
Go ahead.
Dr. Brown, and I'm referring to this one page that Ms. Flowers provided us on the backside. For the AP position, currently we've been working with 2 people, if I'm not mistaken, in that capacity, and now we want to go to 1.
These changes were made by the business manager. She stated that she had permission to reassign those positions.
Madam President, as a board, I think that's something that we need to kind of talk through a little further, because considering the challenges that we had this past year, and maybe before that, I just don't see how you go from needing 2 people to get the task done to now saying 1 person can do this when it was not working out initially. And my second question is, in regards to fixed access. You have years of experience listed as 1, but for clarification, it was indicated that Ms. Coleman handled fixed access this past academic year, so I don't see how that
Correct.
Experience for the month.
So fixed assets does fall under the business office. Those duties were not being fulfilled, so I pulled Ms. Coleman and her team, and they started to locate and document or check the fixed assets in the district. So the business office, the chief of finance has requested to receive fixed assets back, so Ms. Coleman will not be continuing with fixed assets this year.
Dr. Brown, you said that, Ms. Washington was given permission. Could you just, like, elaborate?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Washington sent an email. One of the individuals in the business office had questions about the assignment and her pay. Ms. Washington sent an email stating that the board had given her permission to make the changes. I can read it. I just don't want to say anything that she didn't say, but she said that basically the board gave her permission to make those assignments.
Yeah, you can read the email, but Ms. Washington is under direct supervision of Charles Johnson and Dr. Mary Brown. And I'm sure we had a discussion in the presence of you and Mr. Johnson, but the board cannot direct her. That would have to come from Charles Johnson or Mary Brown.
Well, I can only speak for me when it comes to the supervision of Ms. Washington. It was my understanding. It's really never been clarified to me what role I play with Ms. Washington as it pertains to supervising her. I basically am under the impression that I don't interact with Ms. Washington. I basically interact with Mr. Johnson. So I would love to have some clarification on how I am supposed to indirectly supervise Mrs. Washington.
Well, I know for a fact that on a monthly basis you interact with her in board meetings, in open meeting, in executive session.
But Ms. Milton, when you're working in this capacity every day, speaking to a business manager once a month or twice a month is not sufficient for a superintendent. If I'm responsible for the finances, overall finances of the district, I will need to have some type of communication with the business manager. And given the circumstances, I'm not able to, one, because I don't feel comfortable at this point. So I can't speak for Mr. Johnson, but I will continue to work through Mr. Johnson. But when the business manager sends an email saying that she's received permission from the board, and I'm not privy to those conversations, then
Madam President, may I?
But I want to say, make a correction as well, because from, I'm sure the conversation that Ms. Washington is stating, if I can recall correctly, the five of us was there, Mr. Johnson was there, and you were there. So that would have been something that was said when all of us were present.
well,
You can speak, Ms. Dr.
Okay, how about, Madam President, I'm suggesting that we have this conversation with Ms. Washington present so that she can clarify make any and all clarifications
Yeah,
in regard to what she's requesting from the board.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but
Okay.
it still needs to be clear that Ms. Washington does not take directives from this board. She takes directives from Charles Johnson and Mary Brown.
Question?
Go
Madam
ahead.
President, and I think there's some misunderstanding. So I would certainly like to get Mr. Johnson's take on it, because I'm of the opinion of you, Madam President, and I would assume the board is that Ms. Washington reports to Mr. Johnson, which means she has to get his approval for everything moving
Correct.
forward. Ultimately, Dr. Brown approves it
Correct.
through Mr. Johnson, but I would like to, if the board would allow.
And I wasn't, I'm not sure what meeting that was, but I was not present in that particular meeting. Whatever was heard, Ms. Washington sent me an email stating that she was requesting some moves to be made in her department and that she has been given permission. And so I did ask her who gave her that permission, and she said she received it from the board. That's what she told me. And so, and that's as far as I know about that part.
But in the meeting that she's speaking of, you were in and out of the regular session. So I can't say how much of it that you heard, but I know that you were in and out of the regular session. Any other comments, board members? Because this board wants to make it clear that we do not give directives to any employee of Greenwood Leflore Consolidated School District other than Dr. Mary Brown, who is the superintendent. And at all times, we want it to be known that Dr. Brown is the CEO of this organization. The board does not give directives. Any other comment? Dr. Brown.
Next, I'm going back to the work session agenda. We have data analysis. The board has a copy. We have some COVID-19 updates, and that is through the Department of Athletics. I did email the board with numbers, but this provides a bit more detail regarding COVID-19 cases within the school district. As of today, we have had 5 positive COVID cases, 5 positive COVID cases. We have 5. Number 1 says we have 5 COVID cases. All who were around or in the area or exposed have been tested and retested. I think they're being tested up to 3 times to make sure that they have a negative test. So as of today, we do have 5 positive COVID-19 cases.
Dr. Brown or Mr. Johnson, either one of you can answer this one. We had a meeting while we were setting the agenda Monday. If you can look at number 1, on that last school, you all said that it was an adult. So what happened with that one?
Which one? Yeah.
On the positive test. At the last school. You said it was an adult there. So that would make it be 6. Mr. Johnson, you recall?
What page is that on? I don't have that.
Here.
I see you had 1 student for that school, but you told me it was an adult as well.
I'm just trying to make sure I know.
Did the person come back after being tested? Did they come back positive or negative?
Oh, at the last school,
For the
yes.
last school.
Yes.
So
She went and tested at the hospital after she did
yeah,
her
I know,
test.
but you told me that Monday, so that will make this be 6 and not 5. Dr. Brown.
So, Madam President, question. So we add 1 to the last school?
Yes,
Okay.
because there's 1 student and 1 adult.
Now update
Okay.
her.
Thank you.
But the actions taken, they're still following the protocols and procedures. The letters are still going out immediately, informing parents, students, or whomever's been in contact. And they have been tested. I think, Mr. Johnson, they have to take 3 tests, 3 COVID tests.
Yes, once someone is positive and they become a close contact, they are in a 7-day process where they have to be tested twice a day for 7 days. As long as they come back negative on all 3 tests, they are able to return to whatever activities after day 7.
Can I ask a question, Madam President?
Go ahead, Dr. Brown.
Number 5, Dr. Brown, just for documentation purposes, it asks for a number, so if a number could be provided moving forward.
Yes, okay.
And I can give a roundabout number. I know we tested 53 on last Thursday. We tested 105 on Tuesday. And we tested about 73 on today. And we also test at the juvenile detention center as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Johnson, as it, relates to the juvenile detention center and the testing, so what is the district required to do that?
But the JDC is, we are, Ms. Coleman can probably speak to exactly our relationship with the JDC.
Yes,
As it
ma'am.
relates to testing?
Yes, ma'am. Once a student, undergoes the intake process, they must be tested. If a child tests positive, then we reach out to the parents and they're released back to the custody of the parent. As relates to the one case that we had, the child was released back to the parent. We reassessed with the judge and we released 6 students today so that we could lower those numbers there at the JDC. They will be all tested again on Friday morning to include the staff. After review, all students and staff were properly wearing masks and socially distanced. So there are processes and procedures in place that align with district processes and procedures. But students are tested once they arrive, and if we have any cases or suspect a case, they are tested shortly thereafter. So they took tests yesterday and will test again on Friday.
And so that's a responsibility of the district.
Yes, ma'am. We're responsible for students in 20 counties in the state. So when they come in, we're responsible for their education and related services, special education services, speech, physical therapy, occupational therapy, counseling, social and emotional support.
Now, when you say released,
Yes, ma'am.
please operationally define that word.
Release meaning that they've served the term that was given to them by the judge. We don't decide that, we're told that. So some students are there for a short stay and some are longer stays. Sometimes it depends on the type of service and support that they need. If it requires more mental support, more social support, emotional support, educational services, that's determined by the judge. We're notified and we educate them during the time that they're there. So our staff is responsible for their support and related services. But we have 2 full-time staff members, teachers, 1 regular ed teacher, 1 sped teacher, and 1 administrator who also serves as a case manager. They work 12 months year-round.
So did they go back to the custody of their parents?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And those processes are completed by the judge and the justice system. We don't do anything with that. They just let us know when they come. We interview the child, we interview the parents so that we can provide the best educational services while they're there.
So
Yes, ma'am.
So is the district responsible for any other medical, issues that might arise with those students?
Yes, ma'am. We have a nurse assigned to the juvenile detention center, Ms. Nurse Gray. So she has, I think, 3 schools plus the juvenile detention center and also alternative education. So that is her placement as well.
Thank you.
Dr. Brown.
Next in your package, board members, the school board updates, that's more of executive session or personal. So if you don't mind turning until you see a page that says special projects request. board members, to ensure that we have equipment, sufficient equipment, and more up-to-date equipment for our students. We're making an effort to revamp our band, music, choral arts program. And this is just a consideration. I'm asking that the board consider a special request in whatever amount the board would deem necessary to give to the band department. In this case, I've asked each band director and individuals working with the core music to provide some estimates of equipment that is needed. At all three of our high schools, we don't have sufficient equipment for our students. And we also don't have, we're in need of band uniforms and other things. So if you look at the special projects request, the purpose is just for us to provide more equipment and more exposure to our students in our music department and GLCSD. On the second page, we're requesting to use some of the 16 section land interest fund. According to Mrs. Washington, there will have to be something, a special project, a one-time purchase. I have listed an estimate of how much we have for the 16 sections, a little over that amount. The district funds that have been allocated for the band program, initially we had $7,000. Amanda Elder High School, Leflore County High School, has submitted quotes for everything that they need, not to exceed $150,000. We're still waiting on Greenwood High School. And as you go through the packets, I've separated the high school so that you can see a breakdown and itemized list of the needs for each of the high school band programs, as well as the core arts program. I'm still awaiting a list from the Leflore County High School, and she's working on providing that. Also below, there's another special projects request. I stated during a previous meeting that there's some equipment that is still needed for athletics to make sure that all three, the athletic program, to make sure that all schools have sufficient equipment. And if the board wishes to allow Mr. Gatewood to just explain a little bit more about the needs in athletics, he's here as well.
Before Gatewood comes, I would like, you said Ms. Washington said that this could be a one-time.
One time, she says it's special purchase project only, one-time purchase.
So I'm looking, I can't tell you what page this is, so I'm looking at a travel and field trip.
Now field trips, I think they just put that on there. We're looking at the actual material where they have the two quotes. They just put field trips on there, but field trips can come out of student activity funds.
I'm looking at like JSU High School, they $5,000, and there's a lot of stuff on here.
That's somebody that made a real wish list. We're looking for the actual instruments and instruction material.
And this list was presented to Ms. Washington. So I'm saying she looked at this list?
No, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
I brought it to the board first just to share the request, and then I submitted to Ms. Washington.
Okay. Ms. Gatewood?
The athletic need additional funds that will be used to be required costs of associated for gaming, meals, purchase of equipment needed for the upcoming season to replace outdated equipment and enhance the athletic facility. I gave you a GLCSD athletic department need list. Install a sidewalk around the Mount Elgin and Leflore County High School football field. And the reason why, because in the past, when it rains, the spectators walk in mud. And we're trying to get the facilities up to par where they do not have to walk in the mud, because it was brought to our attention 2 years ago, we had an unsafe facility. And we're trying to get this up to date right now. If you went to Leflore lately, we had done some painting around the facilities, trying to make it, spruce it up. We have done the football field, but we still need additional things like bathrooms, because the bathrooms that's there now is outdated. And we wanted to go in, if you look, I gave you a sketch on a sheet like this with some storage units. With those storage units, we want to build concession stands and redo the bathroom. And they just metal buildings. We also want to buy a storage unit to store the athletic equipment in it, because right now there's no place to store it.
Excuse me, Ms. Gaywood. Those are the last 3 documents that Ms. Flowers sent, that brought in, that are stapled. And I'll just say how it made it easier for me to mark up. If you open to the second page of 1 and you look at the payer, that's the school for that stack. So there's a stack for each one. Ms. Gaywood.
And the reason you see so much things when dealing with football, because football is the most expensive program. Some of this equipment, you buy a high number of equipment, but it's very, very high. So those are things that we're not able to purchase every year or every 5 years because of the cost. Purchasing AC units for all 3 high school football field, locker room. You want your kids to be in a conducive environment where they safe, where they can perform and not be dehydrated. So we asking for purchase of an AC unit for 3 high school football locker rooms. Refers to baseball fields, dugout, tennis courts at the Mount Elgin High School and Leflore County High School. 2021, we established we were bringing tennis to Leflore and the Mount Elgin High School. Past, the Mount Elgin High School had a tennis court, but hadn't been played on probably 20, 25 years. We're trying to work with Mr. Freeman, which is the mayor of Itabena, to refurbish the Leflore County High School tennis court, which is owned by the city. So we can have home games at Leflore County High School. Purchase storage unit to store the athletic equipment for all 3 high schools. Refers to tracks at all high schools. Repair fence at the football stadium for all 3 high schools. Replace football scoreboards at all 3 high schools. And the one we have now is very outdated. Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. We have to continue to call out the electrician company to make sure that the wires are good, or we can use it during games night. Purchase ice machine for Mount Elgin High School, Leflore County High School, and Greenwood High School football stadium. Purchase ice machine for Mount Elgin High School, Mount Elgin Junior High School, Greenwood Middle School, Leflore County High School, and Leflore County High School gymnasium. Purchase 2 62-inch lawnmower for Mount Elgin High School and Leflore County High School. Purchase weed eaters, backpack blowers for Mount Elgin High School, Leflore County High School, and Greenwood High School. Purchase 3 athletic trucks for Mount Elgin High School, Leflore County High School, and Greenwood High School. These trucks will be used by stadium workers to haul things, to pull things, to carry them, to carry from field to field. Also house their equipment to refurbish the concession stands and other things that's needed for. If you also notice, I put the official budget for this year, and this is doing the minimum games. I have the meal plans for this season for all sports. Also, we have a quote from Robinson Fabrication Incorporation to get the handles that Mr. Johnson requests me to get. We'll get a quote for the gym bleachers. And these 40 rails will cover all 3 high school gyms. We just want to, the Greenwood Leflore Consolidated School Athletic Department just want to be on just other schools in the state. The only way we can perform and actually compete is we have these items. For so long, the athletic department was neglected at Elza and Leflore, and we're just trying to get them up to par where Greenwood is at right now and get established where everyone in the state, we can compete with anybody in the state. If you look at the equipment list, these are some of the items that we're not able to purchase here. I don't know when the last time Leflore or Elza had a 5-man sled, but I can count back to, it's been 15 years since Greenwood had one. Dated, the pads are worn out, it's actually not safe to be used. So we're trying to get a new 5-man sled, pop is and up-to-date helmets.
We also in the basketball department is trying to get a shooting machine and a rebound machine. Baseball, we need a 2-pitcher machine, one for softball, one for baseball, for each school. These are items that we haven't had in probably 20 years. I know for Greenwood High School, it's probably longer for Elza and the school. So those are some of the items that we put down. There's more to come after we look at and inspect other areas. We just want our kids to be to the point where they're confident coming to practice, knowing that they're in a safe environment where they can participate in that 1%.
Any questions, board members?
Question, Madam President.
Go ahead, Dr. Brown.
So, Dr. Brown, Mr. Greenwood, you hit on a point that I made a note of regarding football hitting. So you are aware that the perception is, since you are a football coach, that the majority of the emphasis is around football. Correct? Or if you're not, I'm just letting you know. All right? Just FYI. For the tennis courts, you mentioned the tennis court in Eldavina at the library. Is that correct?
For
So we are able to use funds from the district for a public court.
I'm in talk with Mr. Freeman right now, trying to see how can we work it. Because what's going on right now, if we partnership with Eldavina in the city, we can use
And a good point, and I would just like to add to consider maybe the library as well, because people that are competing, they may need to use the restroom versus having to go all the way back to the school. So that's just something else to consider. The scoreboards, we're only talking about football. What about basketball and baseball and softball?
Most facilities, though, have been replaced in the last 10 years.
There are no scoreboards for baseball and the floor.
Well, that's something we just need to add, you know, just as
Oh, you fine.
Mom.
The bleachers. I saw the bleachers on here. Is this for every school? I think it's like 220.
That's for Elza and Leflore.
Okay. Cool.
I just had to put the quote on the both of them, we're talking about getting 2 bleachers apiece.
Okay.
So that's for installment with 4 bleachers.
Okay. And then my last question, thank you for that. The 4 gators. Why you need 4?
What?
Gators. I call them gators with the ATVs or UTVs.
It's actually 3.
Okay. I saw 3 on one page and another one on the following page.
It was just another quote.
Okay,
for another different
yeah,
game.
thank you.
There's only 3.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question, board member?
Mr. Bailey, when we talk about, I didn't put it down, when we talk about refurbishing the baseball field and dugout, the school board was gonna be adding into that.
Okay, and what about the gym floors? And some people, their gym need to be touched up too.
Yeah,
As far as the money allow you to go.
yeah,
Okay.
right now with the gym, we have to go in with the high school, we wanna make that a one-time thing to do, because by us adding volleyball to the high school and L's in the floor, we're gonna have to go in and redesign and rediagram the court.
Okay.
And when we do that, we're gonna do that all at one time.
Okay, thank you.
Right now, Elsie High School and Elsie High School and the Brooke County High School will play at the middle school for the inauguration season.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gatewood, for this information, regarding athletics. Dr. Brown, will we have a record, Mr. Gatewood going to be presenting, the information for the performing arts?
No, Dr. Hodges can, I didn't ask him, but I can actually present it for the performing arts.
I just want, to make sure that, we're equitable. Okay.
Okay.
And, as, Mr. Gatewood has provided us a presentation of the needs in his department, I want to make sure that the music, performing arts, and possibly visual arts, and those classroom teachers, if they have needs, that this is being presented as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
So board members, we presented this in hopes that you would consider allowing us to spend some funds, if not all that we presented, at least use some of the funds to get as much as we need for all of the programs.
So, Dr. Brown, what was that projected amount that you was told?
For each high school, we plan not to exceed the 150,000. And that basically gave them a lot of what they needed, but if we could exceed it, that would be fine, but we were trying not to exceed 150 per high school.
And this is for performing arts?
This is for the band. This part is for band, high school band, 150 per band. For the areas of music, we started and trying out not to exceed $5,000, but we got up to 25 in some areas, so we put a $25,000 limit there. And for athletics, I just asked Mr. Gatewood to get an estimate of all of the things that he's seeing that needs to be repaired at the schools, because we do know that sports brings a lot of revenue in. And so we're just asking the board to consider some, allowing us to use some funds. And even if you gave us a number, I'll send this to Ms. Washington. Once I get Greenwood Highs and the rest of the music people, and if she says that we can do it, I'll present it back to the board, and if you all could just consider giving us a number, and we can work within those amounts. Go ahead.
Dr. Brown, do you think we could get, from Mr. Gatewood, maybe a plan B in the event that we're not able to fund everything that he's asking for, maybe to prioritize
Yes, ma'am.
some of these things?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I remember when we visited the schools together, there was an ice machine or maybe 2 ice machines. I don't have it in front of me what school it was that had not been installed. Do you remember what school that was? Maybe Mr. Johnson does.
Mr. Gatewood.
Greenwood High.
Is it now installed? Are they installed now?
There's some lines that need to be ran, and we have to have outsourcing to have that installed.
I just remember there were very nice ice machines, brand new, that had been there over a year or 2 that had never been put in.
That is correct.
Board members, I would like to bring it to your attention as well that when we're doing school visits, we never get the opportunity to see the JDC. So this year, 21-22, we want to make it our business to go over and visit the JDC. We never put that on the list. Is that all, Dr. Brown?
That's it for the special projects. Thank you, Ms. Gatewood.
Okay.
Next,
Go ahead, Dr.
next we have is not on the agenda. Each board member has a letter of request from, let me see, there's request from a welcoming committee, pastors and deacons, to welcome back students at the high schools. And that's for your information. And that's all I have.
Okay, board members, we know for 21-22, we've been discussing, superintendent search. So at this time, we will just open the floor for your thoughts or recommendations for how we would proceed.
Madam President,
Yeah.
I believe, collectively, we can just talk through what type of attributes we would like to see in a superintendent, as well as will we utilize the services of MSBA. I know that they do conduct superintendent searches, or if we would, decide to go with a different search firm.
So, I will entertain a motion, or I can make a motion for you all to give me permission to reach out to collaborate with MSBA.
So moved.
It's been motioned and second, all in favor?
Board members, I'd like to interrupt. The Greenwood Leflore Consolidated School District Board of Trustees has 3 kinds of meetings: a regular scheduled meeting, a special call meeting, and a work session. Policy BJ states that at the work session, no action is taken. There, I am aware of Attorney General's opinions that state that you may amend the agenda, you may have additions at special call meetings. This is not a special call meeting. This is a work session. So I would advise the board to deliberate on the superintendent search. However, according to policy BJ, you would then make a motion and a vote at a subsequent meeting, possibly Tuesday, at the regular scheduled board meeting.
Any discussions, board members?
Madam President, I would just like to urge the board to consider the advice that our attorney has just shared with us.
I'm fine with that.
Agrees with Dr. Bell and the rest of the board.
Okay. So would somebody like to rescind?
I'll rescind the motion.
Madam President, you shouldn't have to rescind it because we're not in a setting to make a motion. Again, that's my interpretation of the policy, and again, based upon the advice of our counsel.
Okay.
Now, the AG's opinions state that you may amend and alter agendas after the meeting has started, but it also states that Mississippi law does not govern what the board does at its meetings. But it does state that the board may adopt its own rules and regulations of its meetings. But currently, our rules and regulations regarding work sessions says that there is no action taken. Now, maybe the board at a later date would like to maybe consider changing its policy on work sessions. But as it stands today, no action should be taken at work session.
Duly noted. Madam President.
So the next thing would be establishing protocol for information being sent to the board. Dr. Bryan, I received telephone calls and emails from 2 people a week ago who said that they sent information to be given to the board
and it's a week later, and we haven't, well, today we got this one from one person. But then there's another one that the board did not receive. So, Mr. Pulley, if you can establish protocol for, or help us to establish protocol.
Can I comment on that?
Yes.
I don't know who the two people are that
Two
you're
people are
referring
Mr.
to.
Martin and Miss Dr. Ratisha Brown Willis.
Okay, so after receiving both of those documents, I emailed every board member notifying them that those two individuals would like to have a meeting with them. I emailed the board members letting them know that one individual did state that he had spoken to a board member and he was told what to do. I've also provided on the update that you have in your hand today, those same two individuals with the question at the end of the sentence, when would you like to schedule the meeting with them?
When someone sends documentation to me, I would like to see it in its original form. So if it's sealed, I want to open it.
Exactly, and we didn't meet until today, but my question was, when would you like to meet with them, and I will send you what they gave you.
I understand what you're saying, but I would like to see the letter that Dr. Ratisha Brown Willis sent to me.
I have a letter.
And so that's what I'm saying. I should have received the letter.
Ms.
It's been a
Milton,
week.
I will give you a copy of the letter. All that took was a phone call.
Okay. So, Mr. Pulley.
There is, let's see, which I was just trying to find, but the policy states that information to be provided to the board prior be, I believe the policy says 72 hours prior to the meeting, such as the
Board members, the policy does state that at least 72 hours prior to a regular meeting. Both of those documents, if I'm not mistaken, have August 3rd. They were requested to meet with the board on August 3rd and will be included in your board packet. But I will again send the letters to the board members.
Okay, Mr. Pulley, so now it's consideration of executive session. How do I proceed?
I would suggest that you announce that you will be closing this session for executive session, and all the parties leave the room as always. According to our rules, we have gone into executive session before inside a work session, and minutes of the closed session should be recorded. But according to GLCSD's policy, no action should be taken at work sessions.
Chair will entertain a motion to close this session for consideration of executive session.
Second.
It's been motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Ayes have it. Motion is carried. Let the record show Dr. Roshan Bailey voting nay.